I'll never forget the look on her face. That smug little smile as she stood on the deck of my own beach house and said, "What's this old freeloader doing here?" My name is Marian Brooks. I'm 70 years old, and that moment changed everything. The wind off the Atlantic was warm that morning on Hatteras Lane, North Carolina. I had come early for a quiet weekend, planning to sip coffee on my porch swing and listen to the waves. But what I found instead was a full-blown beach party. Beer cans in my garden, strangers splashing in my pool, and my daughter-in-law Kendra wearing my embroidered apron like she owned the place. When I told her this was my home, she barely looked up from her drink. "Relax, Marian," she said. "Ty said the family could use it whenever we want. There's no room for you here anyway." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just being disrespected, I was being erased. I didn't always own a house with a porch swing and a stubborn ocean breeze. I earned it, stitch by stitch. After my husband Frank died, I was 53 with an old Singer machine, a freezer full of casseroles, and a son who swore he'd look out for me, forever. Forever, I've learned, has a short memory. Those first years were narrow and noisy. Steam from the iron, pins between my teeth, late-night deadlines for brides with trembling hands. By day, I fit lace to shoulders and calmed mothers who wanted sleeves, like Princess Kate. By night, I hemmed chef pants and patched the knees on fishermen's overalls that smelled of salt and diesel. Money came in singles and tens, clean or crumpled, counted twice, and slid into an envelope labeled house. Every Friday, I took that envelope to the bank. Evan, the manager back then, would nod at my deposit like it was a ritual between us. "Brick by brick, Marian," he'd say. Frank and I had dreamed of salt air when rent was due and the washing machine broke. On the worst days, we'd drive the 2 hours from our apartment to Hatteras just to sit in the car and listen to the water thrum against the shore. He'd squeeze my hand and say, "One day, Mare. One day we'll have a front door the ocean can find in the dark." He died with that sentence half finished. I decided I would finish it for him. 12 years it took. 12 summers of mending prom zippers and winter weekends altering uniforms for the Coast Guard station down the road. I learned which thread didn't snap in humidity, which supplier sent honest bolts of satin, and how to silence grief with the steady hum of a machine. When I signed the last mortgage paper, I didn't cry. I walked out to the sand, let my shoes sink, and told the wind, "We did it, Frank." Then I planted a rose bush at the end of the deck, a stubborn climber that bleeds pink every May no matter how hard the storms hit. Tyler loved the cottage at first. He'd bring girlfriends to roast marshmallows and brag that he could read the weather by the shape of the clouds. When he met Kendra, I tried, with both hands and a generous heart. I took her shopping for a shawl to match her engagement dress and pretended not to notice how she flinched at the price tag while insisting on the brand name. "You have taste," she told me, lips glossed, eyes sliding over the porch as if appraising a property, not a home. "This place could be leveraged." I laughed then. I'm ashamed to say I laughed. "It's a cottage, dear, not a stock." She smiled like a cat that had decided the mouse was amusing. The first hairline crack came at Thanksgiving. My table has always been small but generous. Oyster stuffing, cranberry with orange zest, the turkey breast pinned with butter under the skin the way Frank taught me. Kendra arrived an hour late with store-bought mac and cheese and a comment that sounded like a compliment but wasn't. "Aw, you still cook from scratch. That's sweet." Tyler swallowed the word sweet like a compliment. I heard what it was: quaint, slow, outdated. Then came the texts about optimizing the house. "Mom, you should let us manage the calendar," Tyler wrote. "It just sits empty." I told him it didn't sit, it waited. Houses that hold grief don't sit, they breathe slow. He didn't answer. After the wedding, their visits changed. They brought friends I didn't know, left wet towels on railings like flags, and replaced my coffee with some slick packet brand that tasted like burnt sugar. When I asked about the towels, Kendra laughed. "We're family." "Loosen up," Tyler's eyes, asked me not to make trouble. I held my tongue, though it tasted of iron. The first time I caught them hosting without me, I tried to be clever instead of angry. I arrived with lemon bars, still warm, pretended I'd mixed up the dates, and smiled through introductions to Lola, the sister with a laugh like a ringtone, and a handful of men whose names slipped off like sunscreen. "We thought you were in Raleigh," Kendra said, surprised but not sorry. Tyler hugged me one-armed and whispered, "It's just the weekend, Mom." My lemon bars sat untouched until a stranger asked if they were gluten-free. It got worse when my hands started to ache in winter. Sewing makes your joints into weather vanes. Tyler noticed the braces and saw, I think, not his mother, but a liability. That spring, he offered to streamline my bills, get me on paperless statements, combine accounts. "It's safer, Mom," he said. "Fewer moving parts." I told him I preferred envelopes I could count and stamps I could lick. He looked at Kendra as if I'd refused a life raft. Then the remark about the will. We were on the deck at sunset, the ocean gold as old jewelry. Kendra traced the grain of the railing with a polished fingernail and said, "You know, it would be such a relief to have the house in Tyler's name. You could still use it, but it would be simpler all around." "Simpler for whom?" I asked, smiling so my voice wouldn't rise. "For the family," she said, and the word family sounded narrower than it used to. Tyler didn't meet my eyes. "She means if, if anything happens." I thought of the rosebush clawing up the trellis, of the seal that barks at dusk down by the jetty, of Frank's hammer hanging on its nail in the shed with his initials burned into the handle. "Nothing's happening," I said, "except dinner." After that, I started noticing paper where it shouldn't be. Mail that had been opened, a sticky note with my bank's 1-800 number in someone else's handwriting, a photocopy of my deed tucked beneath a menu. Once, I found the safe key moved from its hook. I told myself I was forgetful. I am 70 after all, and it's easy to believe the worst story about yourself when the people you love start telling it first. But memory is a stubborn seam. It holds even when the cloth is thin. I remember every installment payment, every night I fell asleep with a thimble still on my finger, every time I told a bride, "Turn, sweetheart," and made beauty out of excess. I also remember the last real conversation Tyler and I had before this morning. We were sitting at the kitchen island, the good light slanting in across the cutting board. "Mom," he said, careful, like stepping on a dock he didn't trust. "Kendra's folks think we should be building equity. Renting's dumb." "You're welcome here," I said. "Any weekend, you always have been. That's not building equity." "What you're asking for is inheritance with the owner still alive," I said. And the word tasted like a medicine I didn't want to take. He flushed. Kendra's mouth pressed thin. "We're just trying to plan," she said. "No one's taking anything." The party I found this morning told me otherwise. The apron on Kendra's waist, my initials stitched at the hem. The strangers lounging where Frank used to gut bluefish at dawn. The music too loud for a house that knows grief. If there is a backstory to this mess, it is simple. I built a home out of thread and grit. My son married a mirror that taught him to look past me. And I mistook silence for peace until silence started erasing me. I am not a saint. I have swallowed pride until it soured my stomach. I have said yes because no felt like a door slamming on the last person who remembers the way Frank laughed when the coffee boiled over. But I am not a fool either. I know the weight of a key and the right to a lock. I know the law calls me owner. I know my own name. And now, as the tide pulls steady and the rosebush clings to its lattice, I know this. A woman who stitched her door into existence won't let anyone sell it out from under her while she's still breathing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The laughter from the house still echoed in my ears even though I was 3 miles away in a cheap motel off the highway. The room smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet. I lay on the thin mattress, staring at the popcorn ceiling, replaying every smirk, every glance, every word Kendra had said. "There's no room for you here anyway." No room. In a house I had built, nail by nail. By 5 a.m., I was sitting upright, shoes on, purse packed. I drove back to Hatteras Lane before the sun had fully risen, the fog curling low over the dunes like ghosts trying to find their way home. My heart thudded against my ribs the entire drive. I told myself I only wanted to collect a few things: my sewing kit, the photo of Frank in his Navy uniform, my journal. But in truth, I wanted to see it again. I needed to be sure this wasn't just a bad dream. When I turned onto my street, I slowed. Their rental cars were still there. Music faintly pulsed from inside. I parked by the mailbox, left the engine running, and walked up the gravel path. My rose bush was bent sideways, trampled. A beer can dangled from one of its branches like a cruel ornament. I knocked once, firm. The door opened a crack, and there she was, Kendra's sister, Lola. Her hair was a mess, one of my bathrobes clutched around her body. She squinted like I'd interrupted her in her own home. "Oh," she said, chewing gum, "you're back. Your stuff's in the garage." "My stuff?" "Yeah, Kendra said you were downsizing or something." She pointed toward the driveway. The words didn't quite land at first. I stepped past her before she could protest. The living room looked like a frat house. Empty bottles, sand everywhere, the couch cushion turned upside down. My embroidered throw pillow lay on the floor with a muddy footprint across the lilies. Voices floated from the kitchen: Kendra's laugh, Tyler's low murmur, the clink of dishes. They were making breakfast like they lived there. I should have screamed. I should have thrown them all out then and there. But I didn't. Instead, I walked quietly down the hall to my study, the one room that had always been mine. The door was ajar. Inside, the air smelled wrong, metallic. My bookshelf had been moved. Behind it, the wall safe sat open. Papers lay scattered like fallen leaves. The folder containing Frank's pension statements, the deed, our marriage certificate, all mixed with loose jewelry boxes. The gold watch Frank wore every Sunday. Gone. My knees went weak. I gripped the desk to steady myself. That's when I saw the documents spread across the blotter. Legal papers I had never signed. The first page stopped my breath. A power of attorney, naming my son as my legal guardian. The signature line bore my name in shaky, unfamiliar handwriting. The notary seal gleamed official and cruel. Beneath it, a second document, a medical report from a clinic in Durham I'd never visited, declaring me mentally unfit to manage financial property. And attached to that, a property transfer form, already notarized, assigning the deed of my beach house to Tyler Brooks for estate planning purposes. For a long time, I just stared. My hands trembled so violently I had to sit down. I could hear Kendra's voice drifting down the hall, light and casual. "Make sure you transfer the utilities by Friday." They were stealing my home while I was still alive to watch. On the printer beside the desk lay another paper, a printout from Airbnb. At the top, in cheerful blue letters, Hatteras Haven, Oceanfront Family Retreat. My address beneath. Listed for rent by host Kendra B. The photos were unmistakably mine. My kitchen, my quilts, my rosebush cropped to look picturesque. Something inside me hardened. Fear gave way to focus. I gathered every document I could find, folded them carefully into my purse, and took photos with my phone. Every page, every signature. Then I closed the safe, locked it even though it was empty, and left the room. In the kitchen, Kendra stood by the counter in my robe, sipping coffee from my mug. She blinked when she saw me. "Marian, you scared me." "Apparently not enough," I said quietly. Tyler turned from the stove, spatula in hand. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I repeated. "That's my question, Tyler. What are you doing here? In my house, with my things, signing my name on legal documents?" He paled. "What? Mom, I don't—" Kendra cut in smoothly. "Oh, come on, don't make a scene. We were just trying to help. You've been forgetting things and Tyler's worried. We talked to a lawyer and—" "You forged my signature," I said. My voice came out steady, sharper than I expected. "You broke into my safe and you forged my name." "Mom," Tyler said, stepping toward me, palms raised. "Let's not overreact. It's just paperwork. Paperwork that would make you my guardian," I snapped. "Do you even hear yourself?" He flinched. Kendra's mask cracked for a second, annoyance flashing through her perfect smile. "You're being dramatic, Marian. No one's taking anything from you. We were just organizing things before it gets complicated." "Before it gets complicated," I repeated. "You mean before I die?" Her silence answered me better than words could. I looked at Tyler, my son, the boy who once brought me wildflowers and kissed my cheek goodnight. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "You know this isn't right," I said softly. "You were raised better than this." He swallowed hard but said nothing. I walked to the front door, each step heavy as stone. At the threshold, I turned back. "You have 24 hours to clear out. After that, I'll let the sheriff handle it." Kendra laughed, a short, cruel sound. "You wouldn't dare." "Think of what people will say. An old woman throwing out her own son?" I met her gaze. "Let them talk." Then I left. Outside, the morning light hit the water, bright and cold. I sat in my car for a long while before turning the key. My hands still shook, but the fear was gone. What filled me now was something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. By the time I reached the bank, the documents were lined neatly on the passenger seat beside me. Evan Riley was at his desk, the same kind man who'd watched me bring envelopes for 12 years. His brow furrowed when he saw my face. "Marian," he said gently, "what's wrong?" I laid the forged power of attorney on his desk. "Someone's trying to erase me, Evan, and they're starting with my house." His expression hardened. "Not if I can help it." He pulled up my account immediately. Within minutes, he found a pending wire transfer request from a new device, a name I didn't recognize. "They were trying to move your savings," he said. "You came just in time." I exhaled shakily. "Freeze everything." He nodded. "And you're going to need a lawyer, a good one." That's how I met attorney Ava Morales, a woman whose voice carried the kind of confidence that could make grown men stumble. When I showed her the forged papers and Airbnb listing, she didn't even blink. "We'll file for a restraining order, an eviction, and a fraud complaint," she said. "Today." For the first time in days, I felt something like safety blooming under my ribs. Not peace yet, but the beginning of it. By the next morning, the sheriff's deputy, Ava, and a locksmith were standing at my gate. The ocean roared behind us, indifferent and eternal. I was ready. I'll never forget the look on her face. That smug little smile as she stood on the deck of my own beach house and said, "What's this old freeloader doing here?" My name is Marian Brooks, I'm 70 years old, and that moment changed everything. The wind off the Atlantic was warm that morning on Hatteras Lane, North Carolina. I had come early for a quiet weekend, planning to sip coffee on my porch swing and listen to the waves. But what I found instead was a full-blown beach party. Beer cans in my garden, strangers splashing in my pool, and my daughter-in-law, Kendra, wearing my embroidered apron like she owned the place. When I told her this was my home, she barely looked up from her drink. "Relax, Marian," she said. "Ty said the family could use it whenever we want. There's no room for you here anyway." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just being disrespected, I was being erased. The locksmith glanced up, smiling faintly. "New ones will be in your hand, ma'am." "In my pocket," I said, and slid my palm into the old denim there, just to feel space, ready for a weight I'd earned. They moved then, the whole house changing tempo. Drawers shut, suitcases unzipped. Lola stomped down the hall and returned with a tote bulging with things that did not belong to her. Hendrix lifted the bag, removed my silver candlesticks, and set them on the console without a word. Kendra paced, phone to her ear, telling a version of the story where she was a victim of a hysterical pensioner. Tyler packed quietly, shoulders caved. He paused at the study door, looking in at the empty safe. "Where's Dad's watch?" I asked softly. He winced. "I'll bring it back." "You'll bring it today," Ava said, "and you'll bring the notary's name, too." The locksmith straightened, new brass gleaming in the morning light. He tested the bolt. It slid smooth as a zipper. "Front's done. Back next." "Thank you," I whispered. When the hour was up, Hendricks walked them to the porch. The sky had cleared, the ocean beating steady as a heart. Kendra turned at the top step, smile sweet as rot. "You'll regret this." "I already regret trusting you," I said, "but I'm done with that." Tyler hesitated, keys dangling uselessly from his fingers. "Mom, do we have to do this in front of everyone?" "We did it in front of the law," I said. "That's enough witnesses for me." They went. The gravel swallowed their footsteps. Somewhere down the lane, a gull cried like laughter. Inside, the quiet rushed in, clean, almost holy. Ava stacked the orders on my table. "Next moves," she said briskly. "We'll notify the platform, file a complaint with the county for illegal short-term rental, and contact the clinic. If that doctor signed anything false, he'll answer for it. I want a copy of every security camera on this block. And I'd like you to change your bank passwords today. Evan will meet us there." I nodded, dizzy with relief and sorrow mixed like tide water. "Will this hold?" "It'll hold," she said, "and then it will bite." I walked to the porch. The rosebush had lost one bloom to the beer can, but the others burned on, ragged and brave. I clipped the dead one, set the can in the recycle, and breathed. The key, the new key, was warm in my fist. Behind me, the house exhaled. Ahead, the ocean kept its promise. I had a lawyer, a deputy's card, a locksmith who did neat work, and a spine that remembered itself. Let them say what they wanted. I was home. Ava stayed long enough to help me gather what the law likes best: receipts. We photographed the damaged rose, the garbage in the pool, the purloined robe, and kitchen gadgets that somehow migrated into Lola's tote. Then we drove to the bank. Evan met us in his office with the blinds tilted just so. A man who knows privacy is not the same as secrecy. "We changed every password," he said, tapping his screen. "Two-factor on everything. New debit card, daily alerts. And I flagged your account so any in-person changes require you, me, and a notarized letter." "Good," Ava said. "Now the paper trail." Evan printed a tidy stack: logins from an unfamiliar IP, the time-stamped wire attempt, the text that pinged my phone at 1:13 a.m., verification code, do not share. I hadn't requested a thing at 1:13 a.m. I'd been lying in a motel bed counting nail heads in a ceiling. On the way out, Evan squeezed my shoulder. "Brick by brick, Marian. We'll shore it up." Back home, the afternoon light lay across the floor like gauze. I opened windows. The ocean moved fresh air through every room as if blessing them again. Ava sat up at my kitchen table, laptop open, the clatter of keys as steady as my old machine. "County code enforcement first," she said. "Unpermitted rentals eat fines for breakfast." She fired off a complaint with screenshots and dates. "Next, the platform. They'll ban the listing by morning." Click, click. "Now the clinic." She dialed on speaker. "Yes, I'm calling about a capacity evaluation signed by Dr. Claude Weathers dated last month. I represent the alleged patient." A pause. "No, she has never been in your office." "I'll wait." Hold music, flutes trying to pretend the world is gentle. A new voice picked up, careful and tired. "This is compliance. We've had concerns about Dr. Weathers. Please fax what you have." Ava smiled without joy. "With pleasure." Then she turned to me. "Do you have photos of the watch?" I brought the velvet box from the top shelf of my closet, now empty, the imprint of the watch's circle pressed into the lining like a small moon. "I have Frank wearing it," I said, laying down the framed picture, his wrist on the wheel, sun on his knuckles, the old gold catching light. "That'll do." The doorbell rang. I stiffened, but it was the caretaker I'd called that morning, June, a broad-shouldered woman with a clipboard and a kind, no-nonsense mouth. "I do weekly checks for 2 houses on this lane," she said. "I can add yours." I change codes like some people change socks. I hired her on the spot. She walked the perimeter like a soldier, noted a broken slat, a jimmied window lock, the way the back gate hung an inch low. "They've been sloppy," she said. "Sloppy gets caught." At dusk, Tyler texted, "I have the watch. Can we talk alone?" I stared at the screen a long time. Then I typed, "Front porch, 10 minutes. Bring the watch and the notary's name." He arrived with shoulders hunched, a paper bag in his hands like an apology. He set the bag down and looked at the horizon instead of me. The sea was turning pewter. "I didn't know about the clinic," he said. "Kendra handled that." His voice shook. I thought you were slipping, Mom. You thought convenience was kindness." He swallowed. "I brought the watch. And the notary. Her name is Blair Colton, Kendra's old co-worker." I opened the bag. The watch lay heavy and scratched, but mine. Frank's. I felt the weight settle the way a keel steadies a boat.
"Thank you," I said. "Now I want the doctor's name who wrote those lies." He didn't move. "Mom, Tyler." He closed his eyes. "Weathers, Claude, Durham." He rubbed his jaw. "Kendra said everyone does it. That it's just smoothing the path." I almost laughed. "Stones get smooth from the ocean beating them for years." He flinched. "I'm sorry." "Sorry is a beginning," I said. "It isn't a bridge." He nodded, eyes wet. "I'll testify if I have to. I hope you do it because it's right, not because you have to." After he left, June locked the gate and handed me a new key. "I'll be here at odd hours," she said. "It keeps people honest." Night fell soft. I made tea in the mug I'd reclaimed from Kendra's lipstick. Ava's phone lit up with emails. The listing suspended. The county opening a case. Compliance thanking us for the facts and promising a review. She stretched, spine popping. "Tomorrow we file criminal complaints. Then civil. Then we rest." The next morning brought a different kind of tide. People talk. Apparently, Kendra had posted a breezy explanation online. Family misunderstanding, nothing to see. She attached a photo of the house at sunset, the one she'd taken while I was in that motel room trying not to scream. Ava didn't argue. She posted the screenshots we'd saved. Kendra's text to Lola, "We'll refinance once the old lady's name is gone." Tyler's message to a buddy, "Grab weekends before Marian figures it out." The Airbnb listing with my quilts, my stove, my rose. By noon, sympathy had turned, swift as birds over water. Comments piled up like shells. Some kind, some cruel, most of them true enough. "You don't do this to your elders. You don't sign a living woman out of her own life." In the afternoon, the county citation arrived. Fines stacked neatly, payable within 30 days. At 4, compliance called. "Dr. Weathers is suspended pending investigation," the woman said. Her voice sounded like someone who wanted to believe good could still happen. "We're sorry, Ms. Brooks." I hung up and stood at the porch rail, salt in my nose, wind in my hair. The house creaked the way old houses do when they settle. So did I. A gull hung motionless on a current, then tilted and was gone. Behind me, the phone rang again. Ava answered, listened, then looked at me with something like satisfaction. "They want a plea," she said. "Fraud, trespass, community service, fines, probation. No prison if they admit what they did." Do they? They will. She closed her laptop. And after, we'll talk about your will. My will? You have a house worth keeping, she said gently. We'll put it where it can't be leveraged by anyone's smile. I thought of nurses wheeling patients down hospital halls, of tired hands and steady spines. Maybe a scholarship, I said, for caretakers who see and keep seeing. Ava nodded. That sounds exactly right. The ocean kept time. The new key warmed in my pocket. I watched the water until the horizon went from pewter to ink. And for the first time in a long time, I did not feel small. I felt stitched back to myself, thread pulled firm, seam holding.
A year passed before Tyler came back. He stood on my porch, thinner, older, his pride worn down like driftwood. I came to apologize, Mom, he said quietly. I understand now. The evening light touched his face the way it once touched Frank's. I wanted to hug him, but some distances aren't crossed in a single step. Forgiveness isn't free, Tyler, I said. It's earned. He nodded, eyes wet. Then I'll start earning it. When he left, I sat on the swing, the sea roaring steady, my rosebush alive again. The house felt peaceful, not empty, but mine. Sometimes people think age means weakness. They forget we've survived storms before. That night, I realized I hadn't lost a home. I had defended a legacy. This house isn't just walls and wood. It's proof that even at 70, a woman can still stand up and win. So tell me, would you have stayed silent or fought for your dignity like I did? Would you have stayed silent to keep the peace or fought for your dignity like I did? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Because every house has a story, but not every house has a woman who fought to keep it.